Welcome to Uncaged. Today we're speaking with Charlie Swift. Charlie, we're going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be talking about the ad industry for sure, and the lovely topic of identity. Charlie is the EVP and the head of marketing and account management for Adstra. Adstra is a company that basically focuses on identity and data orchestration. And we'll talk about really what that means and the challenges that companies have faced in that area, and really where Adstra comes in with a new solution. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure, thanks, Ben. So it's been quite a journey for me in this whole field of data-driven marketing. I actually started off as an architect and actually an engineer, sort of that blend of mathematics with creativity. And I sort of thought I'd go down that path and the engineering path, but somewhere I took a turn to the right and got into data-driven marketing. I did a little bit of consulting for a while, but then ended up at American Express, one of those sort of preeminent data-driven marketers of our marketplace, and spent about a decade of my career there, and had the privilege of building out their first sort of MarkTech solution they had. We built a big prospect database right at the turn of the century, right around Y2K with Acxiom, and put all that infrastructure in place. Enjoyed all that run, but then I actually went and did that two more times. I went to Columbia House, sort of a long-time standing direct marketer. Many of the older folks will remember them, the 6 CDs for a penny and all that business, and that was a lot of fun.
How could I forget? How can I forget?
How can we forget? And then actually, out of the success of building those platforms twice, I went over actually to the publishing space and spent the last decade of my career at Hearst helping sort of build them as a data-driven marketer, when they had sort of been much more the creative side of things. I didn't really believe in sort of data-driven marketing, but we found that all the advertisers were demanding it of them, so it created a nice place for me. And in that journey, I actually had the privilege, as I mentioned, of working with folks at Acxiom and some folks at Experian. And over the course of time, one of the colleagues that I really got to know really well was a gentleman by the name of Rick Irwin. He had run the marketing services business at Experian, then went over and ran it at Acxiom. And when Acxiom was bought by IPG, he decided to go off and build a sort of better solution for the data business, and bought a small company and asked me to come join him. And that was the birth of Adstra. And I've been there the last 4 years helping build out sort of the new answer to how MarTech and AdTech can work with Rick.
I really love that. And I love Rick Irwin. I've had a chance to work with him several times, and really, really excited about what you guys are doing. And in fact, facing some of the challenges that perhaps the bigger players never got right. So tell me a little bit more about what Adstra is up to.
Sure. So as I said, we started on this journey, I think, and you just talked about it, what the bigger players couldn't get right. If you think about they've done some great things over the history of time, but both technologies now actually evolved past what they had sort of put in place, and so they're sort of encumbered by a legacy technology, and they're also encumbered by sort of a legacy economic structure, volume-based pricing. The more you do, the more they charge kind of solution. And as the world's changing, and as marketers need to explore many more options, we know the number of media options that are out there today. They need technology that's far more flexible, and technology that doesn't cost them every time they want to try something new, but allows them to explore. And so we sort of, with that in mind, built the new infrastructure. What is Adstra? The solution that we put in place to sort of help grow with marketers, that matches the value that they're trying to create, matches the technology they're trying to go to. In many ways, the big thing we're trying to do is put control back in the hands of marketers. If you think about, if you've seen the Lumascape over the years and what's happened, how it just continually fills in. Well, if you think about it, each of those logos on the Lumascape is just more people in the middle trying to grab a piece of the pie on the transaction between the advertiser and the customer. And it's just more and more people filling that middle. And we want to sort of take what we call the ad tax out of the ecosystem and put the money back in the hands of the brands and the consumers, and make the system a little bit simpler for everybody.
Hallelujah. Ironically, I think Terry would agree with you somehow. But, I always think of when I first saw the Lumascape, it was really a document to show the inefficiencies of that whole marketplace, right? And somehow it became kind of like the way to think about who was the player.
Right. And more importantly, where do these players need to sit? Because many times you got to put their logos in 20 different places because everybody's doing a little bit of something. And a lot of it goes to no one really knows what the future holds in marketing. So they're making multiple bets. And that's what we're trying to help simplify all that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, clearly Adstra's making moves and really putting a new system in place here. But, I'd be curious to hear, a lot of people a couple of years ago started to talk about coming up with a data strategy, maybe kind of structuring it in a more scaled manner. What's on the mind of some of your customers right now? What are their priorities?
Well, first and foremost, obviously, is privacy and security, right? How do I protect the rights of my customer and protect the data that I have on my customer? And I think everybody will say that's, paramount to what's going on in the ecosystem today. And we're all very aware of that. And there's also a lot of legislation around the use of data that people were very conscious of. Certainly when I was at Hearst, we ran into a lot of those challenges of what was the permissible use of data that we could do. The mind of people, what people really want to do is they do want to honor the customer, but they also want to be in control of the conversation with their customer. How do I use data? So the other part of Adstra is that we realize that there's a lot of data out there. People think data is good, and to a certain extent it is good. What's really more important is making decisions, effective decisions with data. Because you don't need 100 elements, you probably only need 10 elements to make the decision, but it's getting the data available to you to make the decision as a marketer. And that's really what marketers are trying to do. How do I bring the data that I have to the point of decision that I have to make with the customer, be it online or through direct mail or email? It doesn't matter what media it is. There's a decision of what offer do I want to make you at that moment. It has to be timely. And it has to use the data that I have. And they're trying to figure out how to get use of their data. Really, that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes it's really not about just getting data. And I think probably arguably it's never really about that. It's actually finding that meaning and then putting it in place in a way that can be actionable and shape businesses. I absolutely agree. But let me shift gears a little bit here, Charlie. I mean, you mentioned you started out as an architect. You may not know this, but it's actually not that surprising to hear that. There are a lot of former architects in this business. I think there's probably something about the digital sphere, the digital media sphere, the data sphere, that it has kind of an architectural component to it. But I mean, really, what is the driving factor for you, or perhaps put more simply, what gets you up in the morning to keep doing this stuff?
Yeah, well, I think, at the end of the day, for me, you talked about the architect, it's about creativity and but I still like the structure of solving a problem. And so what gets me up is there's a lot of problems out there to be solved. And if I can find a new, simple way to solve a problem, that really gets me up, because it's sort of, you're trying to unlock things for people, saying, hey, you can still do what you want to do in a very simple way. And finding that solution for people is what gets me up. Even just finding it for myself gets me up every day, because part of the reason why I actually changed jobs over time was I like building things. I like creating new. I like the next step of marketing, and how do I put in place the next step of marketing. The great thing about having switched from the buy side to the sell side is I'm getting a lot more swings at the plate now to help more people solve more problems. And that's really, as you get further along in your career, you get to take advantage of your experience in helping people solve those problems. And so, just like a teacher likes to light up a little kid when they first learn something, I like helping marketers light up and learn something that they can do to be effective, both for themselves and for the customer.
I really love that. I certainly think that facing big problems, coming up with solutions is critical. And also, I would say that for you, this is the space that's going to restructure the whole marketing sphere going forward. And so you are dealing with the most complex problem, Charlie, as we know. But let me kind of push forward here and talk about 2023. I mean, here we are in a lovely landscape, lots of economic uncertainty in the media market. But what's on the docket for Adstra and what's on the docket for your customers?
So, well, 2023, I think beyond Adstra is going to be a really profound year for everybody, in the sense that the explosion of AI is certainly out there and challenging everybody. For us, for people to harness the power of AI in a positive way, it does mean about this whole idea of why identity is so important to us. It's because we talked about the connection of data to drive decisions. Well, now if you want AI to help you get scale and drive all those decisions, we still got to figure out how to plug it into something so that it's using the right data. Because if you don't, it can easily get out of control, and it can actually do things that are worse than better. So it starts with really helping people understand who their customer is by recognizing their customers. So identity really starts with that recognition, that resolution of who it is. And there's a different level of identity from a fraud security perspective. We're not talking about that, but it's about allowing the right data to be fed into those ecosystems so that we can make it a better experience for customers. So 2023 really is about us figuring out, even beyond the traditional channels of connection, there's so many more channels. So connected television probably is high on our list in terms of whole new sets of medium that require whole new sets of identity connections that are out there. And then the other parts are with the various threats, and you can talk about whether it is or is not going to happen on the cookie deprecation front. There's still multiple other ways to recognize and identify people. So it's about saying, how are we going to recognize customers? How are we going to identify them and connect data? That ecosystem is evolving very, very rapidly. And, I'd like to think we're on the forefront of that conversation and helping make that happen. There's still a lot of things that have to go on. We don't know where the Google antitrust lawsuits are all going to shake out, but they are going to have impact on all marketers. And our goal really is to help prepare marketers for that. You used the word solving the complex problem. There is a lot of complexity, and I think marketers are in many ways fearful of that complexity. What I want to do is take the complexity out of it and say, marketing still is about the basics: right offer, right time. Let's get back to the basics, not get caught up by the noise around it, and hopefully help marketers do what's right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great hearing the whole story around Adstra. And I'd say, Charlie, very refreshing to hear your take on the data space. I think sometimes we get buried into the intricacies, and it's really important to kind of capture that thought of, here we are, we're trying to get a very clear identity, but not just like data for data's sake, but an identity that's meaningful, and then orchestrating that and pushing it forward. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and the team at Adstra is working on, where's the best place to reach you?
Well, they can certainly either email us at connect@adstradata.com. So Adstra, DATA at the end.com, or just go to adstradata.com on the site. Both those ways are, people can reach us if they want at any time.
Excellent. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today. We've been speaking with Charlie Swift. He is the EVP and head of marketing and account management at Adstra. Their solution that they're really bringing to the market really is focused on, I'd say, coming up with a clearer, actionable way of thinking about identity and data orchestration. Clearly, what data is about is not just about collecting endless information, but trying to actually find that stuff that's meaningful and making it simple. And as Charlie, I think, so eloquently said, let's get back to marketing. Let's use this information to actually market more effectively. So, Charlie, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you, Bant. Appreciate it.
Cheers.